Hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Authentic. I'm here as your host, Takuma Robinson. I'm here with a very, very special guest, John Michael Waite. I know him as John Michael, but now he's got older, he goes as John. So he jumped from Michael. But if I say John or John Michael, it's the same person. I wanted to have John on because I've known John for a very long time, since we were kids, and I've just been blown away with what he's been able to do in the youth community, in the soccer community, especially here in our hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma. The way that he has prepared these kids and what he has done has been remarkable. So I just wanted to pick his brain and also catch up with him, because we spent a lot of time as kids. As we got older, we moved to different states. So this is also a good chance for me to kind of catch up with an old friend. So it's good to see you, brother, too.
Glad to see you, brother.
So thanks. We always start off, just give me a little bit of background about you. Tell me your story.
Ooh, starting at where?
Wherever you want.
Okay. Well, I'm from Tulsa. Grew up in North Tulsa. Grandparents lived in Salina, Oklahoma, and so just kind of grew up on that side of town, and was going to Burroughs Elementary, and went into Carver and then to Booker T, and met a lot of people, and had a lot of, I would say, unique experiences. Being on that side of town kind of raises you a little differently, and you learn how to adapt a little bit, but a blessing to. I'm very grateful, because I met a lot of amazing people, and it kind of forged me into a certain personality, good and bad. Things that I really like about my characteristics, and other things that I got to be careful with.
You gotta work on that.
Like anything else, but nonetheless, good, very, very good experiences. So vast. We have a lot that we could unpack if we want to talk about. but that's that circle is kind of where I met you, and and Coach Encian, and really kind of paved the way for experiences that would one day, in many ways, prepare me for today, for life, and so.
What were you like as a kid? So
man, as a kid, I like being outside. I like to play. I was very talkative in school. I probably got in trouble more than anything for just talking. I just wanted to be active and a class clown, but I played a lot, and played basketball and wrestled, and soccer was something that I kind of fell into. But initially it was because there was no soccer really in my area, so it was more basketball and football and tag and all types of the neighborhood games. Just throw a ball up and everybody smash everybody. Lots of flipping and gymnastics and jumping off stuff. But flipping was real. We called it flipping. Flipping was really important in our neighborhood. Learning how to do double backflips and back handsprings. It was a culture of mattresses and on hills. But we learned how to really control our bodies. Looking back on it, I'm like, wow. More kids should be doing what we were doing, because we were developing as athletes with no coaches. Today it's much more inorganic. Where we have to really directly teach, because they don't have those same experiences. But loved basketball. I loved wrestling, but soccer was different. When I found soccer, it was not something that I. It was something that I wanted to be better at all the time. So I kind of caught that bug and just wanted to play and play and play and play. And once I learned that it was something that there was actual league, there was actual teams, there was then I actually really started to. I really started to find it as part of me. The ball was part of me, and I found I could forget about anything else that was happening if I had the ball. I'm not sure if I was processing this, but it was absolutely an escape. You know, I was able to go in my yard with nobody, you know, and we had, I mean, our yard, when I say yard, was probably a 12 by 12 square of grass and sort of grass. Sort of grass. At the time, I felt like it was grass. It's come to find out. Come to find out. It was. I guess
there was some grass.
There was some grass. There was some grass. Technically, there was grass. But yeah, that's where I learned how to play. Like, learn how to just fall in love with the ball. You know, not necessarily how to play, but how to play. Right. You know, how to play by myself. And at times we were a little isolated in our area because it could be a little dangerous to just, to be out. Mm-hmm. And so, in many ways it forced me to learn how to play, so my big brother was kind of off doing his thing and my sister was doing her thing, but me and my little brother were kind of stuck on this little patch. And we call it on the hill, and we would play a lot for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. We would also go off into before that area was really developed, because it ended up getting kind of developed. There was lots of trees, lots of bushes that we could crawl into and search for, artifacts. And I mean, there was literal artifacts up there, like fossils, and there was literal pottery. Oh, yeah. Yes, wow. Yes, because I'm pretty sure it was just Native American area that hadn't been developed, and so some of this stuff was coming up. We were finding like peace pipes, and just really, it's really interesting. We found all types of stuff, and one of the things that we had, my mom was a little freaked out by it. She was, my mom, right? Yeah. So she was she didn't want certain things in the house, certain artifacts and these types of things, and and so we had called the museum on it. We called Gilchrist Museum, and Gilchrist Museum was coming to look at it. They were like, I think you have something. Anyways, it was outside, and we ended up dropping it and breaking it. So that was probably our first chance that we missed of $1 million. But it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be. So but it was all stuff like that. You know what I mean? It was my childhood was a lot of, in terms of just play, a lot of being outside, a lot of riding bikes and things like that, and our house in general, there's a lot of issues, with family, but us kids, all my cousins and all our kids, we just were really like a little rat pack, and we just we found ways to play. My mom, we didn't have a lot. We didn't have much, so we didn't have a lot of material things, but my mom would make sure we went to the park, so she did an amazing job of, taking us. We'd have some bread or some corn, and we would go to the pond and feed fish, and so we're getting some really beautiful experiences. Yeah. It just goes to show you don't need much to do a lot. Yeah. And she was amazing about that, and my dad was working, and so he ended up taking work early. Then he moved to Dallas. So he was in Dallas for quite a while while we were at home with my mom, and I was starting to get real into sports, but he wasn't there initially. So eventually he ended up coming back to Tulsa. So then, he helped a lot to get me where I needed to go, make sure I had cleats and make sure, those types of things, and sacrificed a lot, to get me other things I needed to play.
And speaking of a player, you became quite a player. I can say that objectively. I remember even when we went to college, it's not a funny story, but it just caught my attention. A guy that I played with in college, he asked where I was from, and I said, family's out in Atlanta, but I'm from Tulsa. And he said, "Do you know this guy? This guy named John Michael? John Michael?" I'm like, "Yeah. What do you know?" He's like, "Yeah, everybody talks about how great this kid is coming out of Oklahoma, whatever. This John Michael." I was like, "Yeah, it's like one of my best friends." I still remember that to this day. Like, you had your reputation really preceded you. So
yeah, well, I think looking back on having some success as a young player, and how much of it was the peak, like other guys I was around, like you and you and Ensign and Court and Clint and these types of guys that like Pat Tanner, Kenny Bundy, these types of guys, and my isolation early. I was just in love with the ball. I think I probably played. Sometimes I say I played 10 times more than anybody else, and I don't know. And part of it was just because that's all I did, and so that helped me a lot in terms of my foundation to be able to play and to do things, And obviously, some of it's just a blessing that you have a little bit of athleticism, but again, all of the neighborhood activities, all of the stuff kind of culminated into like. And then I watched probably a lot more, or I sought information even as a little kid. I sought information, I think, in the game, right?
Yeah.
In the game. That's, I think, more than most kids. Like I told a story that my dad would go and get these videos. He would rent the videos on VHS and from the library. And so he would set up the camcorder, and he would record the TV, bootleg them, right? And so I would have them in access. So I watched them constantly. We'd take them back to the library, but we had the bootleg version, and I would watch constantly. So I was watching, doing all the time, kind of self-taught. So there was a lot of holes in my game. You know what I mean? A lot of holes, mentally, technically, a lot of holes. But it was good enough that I could function at a pretty good level, and there was enough creativity, that helped me. Yeah, but a lot of it was just blessings that I had something that I like to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's because I know your kids.
Yeah.
We are actually at a place called Technico 10?
Technico 10. This is the school.
So this is a soccer school that he runs. He's the technical director still. I believe that's your title, right?
Yeah.
Still.
Uh-huh.
He's the one that basically makes these kids. Gives them sauce. That's what I call it. A little bit outside of the standard. These kids are really developing good technique.
Yeah.
And they have school today starting at 9. So I'm gonna try to move on. What got you started here, and what's the school about?
Yeah. So our school is like, first of all, Coach Ensign started the school like 10, 12 years ago, right? So the school is not new.
Yeah.
It's just developed into something as we've developed. The school has transformed into something that has a very clear methodology and a very clear style that we want to give the kids, that we feel like can differentiate them from most players, right? Now there's lots of ways to do it. We just feel like we have an effective way, and it makes the kids unique. So we were at another local club here, and we parted ways with that club, just kind of difference of objectives. We were trying to do a little bit more in terms of the player development side and moving players on, and it was just ideas didn't align. So so I came over here to take over with the school, and so we've been doing it for a while. I was working with the school, then I wasn't working with the school, then I came back to work with the school, and but I would say that what we're doing over here, we call it kind of extreme ball mastery, so that the kids are very familiar with ball manipulation, and the whole idea of our ball manipulation process is that we train in excess so that the kids can eventually just look up, they can play, right? So
it's instinctual at a point.
It becomes like an extension of their body. Yeah. So okay, that's great, you know what I mean? But there's so much more to the game. There's a lot more to the game, but this is a big component, right? It's just being able to receive a ball without looking at the ball, pass the ball without looking at the ball, dribble the ball without looking at the ball, because then you have a higher order thinking. You have much more bandwidth to share other things. Now, of course, there's spatial awareness, and there's time and space and tactics and concepts and principles and all these other pieces that are other very important components, which we also address. But the ball mastery part is something that we feel like complements and frees up those, and also gives our kids a very distinct style when they're on the ball. Most people can tell that kid is he trains with Technico or she trains with Technico. It becomes pretty clear.
What I noticed from a lot of your videos that you, well, this is what it seems like. I don't know if this is actually what's going on. But it sounds like you have a challenge that you give these kids. It's some sort of pattern, you know, roll over the ball, do this, do stuff, you know, with all these different things. And it's a pattern, or maybe like 10 moves that are strung together. And then because I see you'll post like 6 or 7 kids doing the exact same thing, right?
Yes.
And I find that that's a creative way of getting kids to play with the ball. Is that something that you did intentionally, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so that's perceptive, because I always wonder, do people catch this, that they're doing the same pattern? Because it must be a player that can catch it.
Yeah.
But so they're challenges, right? And so we have what we call code. So code is like is the initial pieces that they learn, the names, all of the small individual pieces that will go into. Some of them are basic. The majority are basic, and then we have some intermediate, and there's some more advanced type of things, right? But they're all, and then we break those into family groups. And within the family groups, it's just, if you think about phonics, letters, words, sentences, paragraphs, stories, like it just goes like this, and until we say that they're fluid. You know, they're fluent in the language of ball mastery, and we have some kids reaching fluency at 10, 11 years old. Now, that's a piece of it, but we know that piece will be with them forever. And now that we're teaching, or much earlier conceptual play and principle play and things that make sense to them to be able to execute these things. But yeah, from there, then it'll go into step by step, and usually it flows. So it's not going to be, it's going to be something where we call it winding and unwinding, right? So they're in, right? And then how do we get out of this? And so it becomes, you know, like jujitsu, or like, you know, mixed martial arts, where there's like, you get in, you're like, how do I relieve this pressure? How do I escape out of this? Right. So it's a lot of that. A lot of the ball manipulation is how to escape. It's just how to find a moment where I need to get out of this so that I can find a pass, right? Yeah. Whenever there is no other solution, right? Yeah. So so that's kind of us trying to prepare them for when A and B are not present. So we all plan, okay, A and B, of course, like there's a pass here, there's a pass there, find the player in a better position than you, clearly, right? But what happens when there is no A and there is no B, right? What happens when there is no B? Do you now have a solution? Because this is what's going to differentiate from the other guys. Because when this is obvious, it's obvious for everybody, right? So the difference is, can you now, on your own, escape this moment, right? And be able to problem solve and to help your team be able to advance the ball. Yeah.
So I always found that very interesting, and I see the technical levels. Some of the kids limit. I know that obviously the mistakes are not going to be on camera.
Of course, no, that's great. Yeah,
but the mistakes are part of learning. They're a very vital part of learning.
Yeah, we had one video. Yeah, that's a really good, man. That's such a good observation and a good statement, because what people see is maybe after sometimes an hour of the same action, an hour of just mistake after mistake after mistake, and almost get it. Yeah. But when they get it, we are searching for that I did it. Yeah. So it's not only ball mastery. We're talking about it's an individual challenge. It is a daily puzzle. Their brains are activated. Their courage, they're discouraged, their They have self-doubt. I can't do this. This is impossible. Who can do this? You know what I mean? If you're looking at this, I'm like, yeah, that's difficult. This is a difficult thing that they're doing, but it's a tiny, for us, it's a tiny thing. For them, I mean, it might be the biggest confidence boost. And once they get one,
Right.
Now they're getting two, and now they're doing things they thought they could have never done. Now they're implementing pieces of it in the game. Things are changing for them as a human, for them as a player. It's a huge piece, both emotionally, cognitively, and obviously technically too.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's move on for a second. Yeah. So what do you think the state is of the sport here in the United States? What do you make of it?
Woo! It's a loaded question. So, yeah. Well, how honest to be. Very, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
It's always a good place
That's
to start.
a good place to start, yeah. It is very, very good in many aspects, right? Very good in many aspects. We are very competitive on the world stage at the youth national team level. We have I would say some of our academies rival some of the best in the world right now. Philly and, we have Inter Miami and Orlando City right now is on fire. All these, obviously LAFC, Chicago Fire, FC Dallas, these are Houston Dynamo. These are big global now brands. So the infrastructure, the coaching, the periodization, the attention to EQ, like emotional intelligence and physical load, tactical periodization, all of these little components to build the player, nutrition, everything is there for these kids. And many of the academies are free, so they're fully funded. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of talk about pay to play. Well, at the top academies, they don't pay. For some of the smaller ones, yes, it's still pay to play because there's no first team to support it. But if you're good enough to get into an MLS academy, even the pay is nothing. You may have a host family and you may stay there. So now then you move into like the Greenwood type of MLSNext. So our kids now are playing the same competition as those kids. So now, there's pieces that we lack, right?
So let me just stop for one second, just to educate the fans. So, Greenwood SC is a new club that just made it into MLSNext. MLSNext is probably the premier youth soccer league in the United States on the men's side, right? So, what he's talking about when he gets into Greenwood SC is this new club that's now playing at the top level, basically, in the United States for youth sports.
Yes,
right?
in Tulsa. Yeah, that's right. Access is even gotten, it's getting into Oklahoma to where now our kids can compete at the same level as Chicago Fire, the same level as Sporting Kansas City. And now, obviously, there's things that they can offer that we currently can't, just in terms of the funding piece. Right. But we're working on that too. We're starting with the platform, starting with the ability to compete, which for me is the most important piece. Yeah. And then so we have to be creative on how we get everything done. But at least we're at the table. At least our kids get to go compete. So that's a huge step for us. Yeah. Now, I believe. One of the things, I don't know if you've watched most of the recent U.S. national team games.
Unfortunately, I have.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
let me ask you this. What would you say is one of the biggest issues that you see with the U.S. men's national team?
There are a few. I think creativity. I don't think you have any creativity. You don't have a 9. I don't think we have answers. We're very robotic still in the way that we play. I think that we don't really have a 9 that we can depend on. I don't like the coach. Yeah, that's just my opinion. I know he's new and I know he's proven, but I actually don't. I don't think he's getting the best in the players. So that's my opinion of the team.
But. No, I think it's good. I would even add, right? I would add. They are lacking. I think what a lot of the American public sees that they're lacking is bite. like
Oh,
real passion.
passion.
You know, you got
Yeah,
you got Luna, right?
Yeah.
And you got Pulisic that'll
Yeah.
run around and bang around, and you know, but across the board, right? And across the board, I think we lack overall intensity. You know, we lack overall intensity, and I think that's one of the knocks that I have. I think everybody, of course, if you look in some of our academies, right, everything is very similar, right? The same guy, cross legs, looking at his partner, looking very astute, very studious, right? And all amazing coaches, right? But that personality piece, when we want our players to go out onto the field and say, you guys really want to do this?
Yeah.
You guys really, this team really wants to step onto the field with us? And like, do we have that? Do our guys have that innately? Have they been training that way since they were 13, like they maybe do at Philly? Now, at Philly, it's a little different, you know, like culturally, it's much more acceptable to argue, to compete, to fight. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So those kids are built a little different. Now, there's other pockets like that.
Yeah.
But as a base, I think people really try to steer away from that because it's a bit too controversial, but great, right? So everybody's safe, okay? Nobody's upset. But the players then also, I think, in many ways, adopt that kind of like safety, and they tend to be more pacifist and like, oh, let's not do that, and let's not say this, and let's not. There's lines, right? But I think one of the things that we are lacking is intensity. Now, we'll move to Jesse Marsh, right? Now, Jesse Marsh is at Canada. He's an American, right?
Right.
Now, he's on the other side of this with maybe where he's very intense, maybe too intense at times. Maybe the intensity moves into emotion, right? Which is, you have to be careful to balance those two things. I just had this conversation with Incy, and Marsh get sent off purposely, you know, in the game, right? Was that on purpose? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he did, right? What did his team do? You know what I'm saying? They responded. I think sometimes we are so nervous about being vulnerable or looking like maybe like we care too much or that it means too much. And you always hear the term, it's not the World Cup. Yeah. It's just a game. It's this, to me, this permeates kind of this. And in so many ways, it's true, right? It's true. But there are things within the game that we desperately need to survive, you know? Yeah. And I think that the more we can instill this, right, in a controlled way, 100%. Right, that we can instill this into our players, our American players, that maybe the Uruguayan kids, they kind of get it, right? The Argentine kids, they kind of get it. Yeah. Those coaches are not trying, you know, they're not playing. You know what I mean? If this is not for you, this is okay. Nobody's judging you, but go over there, go do that, you know? Yeah. But if you're going to do this with us, you're going to be a certain type of guy. Yeah. You're going to be a certain type of girl. You're going to be a certain type of, you know, you're going to want to compete. And we're not here to make friends, you know. We're here to compete. We're here to be the best that we possibly can be. Not everybody likes that, you know. But after the game is done, right? Everybody is respectful, and everybody goes and everybody supports each other and loves each other. Now, right? There's a balance here, right? To be able to teach respect, but also to be able to say, in this game, we are battling. It is a battle, right? We're not here to. You understand? You know what I mean? It's a line that you have to walk, but it's like a very delicate line, and often you're going to cross the line, right? Often,
that's fine.
And then you come back, and everybody says, "Hey, we crossed the line. We got to come back." But we're constantly walking that line because we know if we try to avoid that line, we're crippling our kids, right?
So I see that sometimes in youth. My daughters play sports; they play soccer, and my youngest one, she's 12. I was telling you about. Sometimes when I watch their games, they may go through a whole game, and there may be 2, maybe 3 fouls in the whole game.
Yes.
And that was never the case.
No.
They're just naturally, because you're always trying to battle for the ball. You're going to kick people.
Of course,
it's part of the game, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, there definitely is a natural intensity that definitely has been lost over the years.
Yeah.
In the American player.
Yeah, I agree.
There also seems to be a breakdown, because on the, like you had mentioned, on the youth levels, we're able to compete with a lot of the different countries.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we lose some, but we win some, but we're competitive all the way up until you get to about like U17s,
Mm-hmm.
and then. But there seems to be a few year periods where I'm thinking there's around 16, 17, and probably about 20 that I think that we lose some of the ground that we make as a youth player. I don't know if it's the years of going through college rather than going pro
Mm-hmm.
straight away, and where you're playing 5 times a week or whatever, or practicing every day.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's where it is, but I think that that's the period that we have to solve, because I think we do really well, like you said, in the youth tournaments, and I think our players are skillful. We have players from around the world. The coaching's here, the infrastructure's here, but I think in those few years, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
we lose ground.
Yeah, we do. And again, there's probably many components to where we fall off. I mean, you're 15 national team, 16 national team, 17 national team, 18 national team, all the way up into the 20s, 23s. Like, it starts getting to 20s and 23s, maybe it starts to wobble a bit, right? But all the way up into here, I mean, our kids are playing up just like the other kids.
Exactly.
Our kids are competing just like the other kids, and we're playing against their best,
Right.
against our best, and many times we are winning, right? So what is happening? What goes on? I feel like when it really comes down to it, right? And everybody is good. I believe the U.S. team has very good players, right? The question for me is, do they have the right players, right? Do we have those guys that are like gonna absolutely run through a wall for the badge? Or some of these guys, like, they're happy to be there. It's an honor to be there. Clearly, everybody's proud to play. But what are they willing to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what is Pochettino willing to do for the badge, for his team? And do they trust that he's willing to do anything for the badge? They do. I bet you they do for Jesse Marsh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think we're lacking some of that. Again, look at. No knocks on anybody. Like, these guys are better coaches than I am, right? Like Berhalter, right? Pochettino. Maybe Berhalter. But you know what I mean. Berhalter, Pochettino. These guys are the same guys. You know what I mean? Emotionally.
Yeah.
Emotionally.
Yeah.
Everything is this. I mean, if everything is this, why would the players not think everything is this?
Right.
Like, is it performance based? Is it character based? What are we judging off of? I think, you can go. I don't want to jump too many times around, but there is not an organic. There's nothing organic to hold the coach and the players. Pochettino, of the last 2 results in another country,
He's under pressure.
He's under real pressure.
Right.
Is he right now?
Right.
Is he? Like, did he sit and did he look astute? Yeah, he did. He looked fantastic on the bench. But like, maybe Jesse Marsh looked like a fool, right?
Right. But he got a response.
But
Yeah.
so what? He's willing to be vulnerable. He's willing to look stupid. He's willing to put everything about who he is there for you to attack,
Yeah.
and say, come with it, because my guys know that we're here,
Yeah.
and I don't know that we hire risk takers like that, but I think that also bleeds into the players, consciously or unconsciously. Regardless, I do think that it bleeds into the players. I think that's a piece of it. Now you have the college aspect, right? You have the promotion relegation thing where people see, there's no, but again, accountability in here. I still think, most of our players, on the national team aren't even playing MLS. There's a lot of them aren't, and maybe they should be. Maybe that's the other issue, is they're not getting game minutes. Some of them are playing in big clubs, but they're not getting the minutes they need.
Well, some of them, I mean, you really look at the starters, a lot of them aren't playing. I mean, some of them in the Serie A, I mean, all big builds in the Serie A.
Yeah.
But, they're playing for big clubs. And so, I mean, the knock always has been we didn't have the players, but some of the clubs tend to think differently because
I think we do. I think we
Right.
do have the players. I'm not sure that we're picking
The right players to get the job.
The right players for the job, like just those guys, and maybe it's a different profile and saying, hey, we're not necessarily going to pick our best players. We have a style of play that we want to get to, and it's going to be gritty, but yeah, it's got to be the right person.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. So what's new with you? What do you guys have going on? You guys just got into the MLSNext, and you're doing ID camps for that?
We're doing ID camps. So we the last ID camp was a few weeks ago. We had nearly 500 kids. They kind of came through. So we're building programs of kids to compete in 2 tiers of MLSNext. So we have Tier 1, which is the Frontier Conference. That's Sporting Kansas City's and the FC Dallas and Colorado Rapids, Houston Dynamo, some heavy hitters, right? And then we have the developmental League 2, which is our Tier 2 Pioneer Conference, which is another very good league. So kind of some players will float back and forth. Some players will be more heavy on this side. Some players will be more heavy on this side. But it's always just about trying to get the kids ready.
Yeah.
Wherever they need at the time, and then hopefully everybody's progressing.
And how many teams are you guys going to have?
We'll have 6 teams in the Olders from U13 to U19.
Oh, no, okay. And do you have a men's program? Or, I'm sorry, women or girls?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. We definitely want it. And we're working on it. Yeah, we're working on it.
That's pretty good.
We haven't forgotten about the girls. Because we have a lot of amazing young ladies here, and we want to be able to provide the same opportunities for them as for the boys, for sure.
Okay. So switch subjects again. Obviously, working with the national team, just listening to you talk passionately about what you expect or what you would like to see from the national team. I know America means a lot to you. So what does America actually mean to you? What does it represent to you? What are your thoughts on the country?
Well, first of all, I think I don't think being an American makes you better than anybody else. You know what I mean? I think some people maybe feel like that, like it's manifest destiny, and for me, I think America represents opportunity. I think we've been blessed to be in this country. You know what I mean? It's a blessing because we have. If you've been to other countries, like that we are blessed here. Even other developed countries, we're still very blessed to be in this country. I like the idea that we are a melting pot of cultures, a melting pot of races, a melting pot of accents and different dialects. And you can be, let's just say Oklahoma, you can be 20 minutes away. You can have somebody from the hills, like completely different accent, completely different dialect, completely different culture. You go 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it's a kid that's never been to the country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kids that have never seen wildlife. You know what I mean? In our own city.
Yeah.
To me, it's fascinating. It's fascinating, the languages and the music. It's just America is built on. Is built on conflict, you know what I mean, and in some ways, all of those kind of like dark moments in American history, have kind of pushed America to be what it is. And on the positive side, we have a lot of deficiencies, but thinking on the positive side, we've had so many dark moments, whether it's the need for a civil rights movement, right? The Trail of Tears with American Indians, there's just Black Wall Street, Greenwood. There's so many devastating times in our history, but we're American, right? So we find a way for me and you to be having this conversation right now. and that's the beautiful thing about it, is we just keep surviving. And I think, you, myself, Ensign, I consider survivors. You know what I mean? So I closely relate being an American to being me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it means not just about the American flag, but the flag representing, or the state representing, struggle and defeat and demoralization, and self-doubt, and fighting back. Fighting back, the fight, the struggle, the beautiful fight. You know what I mean? So to me, when we go, like you mentioned being there with the national teams and something, it's different, man. You know what I mean? It's literally like us versus them. I don't think we have that enough at that senior level, that we do the same way of like, no, it's us versus everyone.
Right.
And I don't know how people don't love that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how people don't love that. But I do.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. One thing I've said to many of my friends back home, back in Maryland, is we have issues, and we've gone through a lot in our past, but that has, like you said, it's forced us into a new place. We're known for our issues when it comes to like civil rights and women's rights and all sorts of issues that have come up in the States, but we are further along in that process than most other places around the world.
Definitely.
Like, you would never go to an NBA game and have people in crowds throwing bananas on the court.
This is true.
Right?
Yeah.
But you can go to Western Europe, you can go to Eastern Europe, and that still happens to black players.
Yeah.
The black players get abused to a point where people are they can go off the field.
Yeah.
That would never happen. Can you imagine that happening at an NFL game? Or this?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that our issues have been out front, and they've been out in the open, and obviously the world watches the United States. I think that probably makes it a more unique, is that the whole world watches, and so they've seen the struggles, but we are, I think, further along in a lot of these issues than a lot of places around the world.
Yeah, and I think that's another good point about being an American, being from here, is that we're like unapologetically American. We're unapologetically flawed. We're like, we get it, man. We are a giant country, and we have some of the brightest minds, some of the most amazing humans in this country. We also have so many people that, of course, there's gonna be a dark side. There's gonna be a faction of the population that is a mess. You know what I mean? That are ignorant. That cause a lot of trouble and do things backwards. It just happens to be that they're extremely loud. In this country. But we know that. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, people outside, if you try to wrap America into a single entity, you're just like, you're so naive. You're so naive. It's so naive.
Too dynamic.
It's too dynamic. It's too diverse. In one state.
Yeah.
We've got a bunch of those states. It's huge.
Yeah.
So it's too complicated to try to bound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So what are you looking forward to? What gets you hyped? What gets you motivated to move forward?
Man, another day, just being able to have, I feel like in my life, I've made so many like mistakes, and so many, constantly making mistakes, you know what I mean? But that's why I'm just so grateful. My thing that I look forward most to is the next day, to try, like today, to try to see, like, can I do something better? Can I improve something? So that's a big prayer of mine is, just, forgive me for where I messed up and help me to do better. I want to do better. So that's probably the thing I look most forward to on short term, is just a little self-growth, trying to help somebody. But the thing that really motivates me, honestly, is seeing kids that may not otherwise have an opportunity, not only get an opportunity, but be prepared for the opportunity. So that moves me, that moves me and say, that's not it. That's just, you're close, but that's not it. Tweak this, change that. Trust me, I did that. Yeah. Trust me, I was that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I know how that ends. Don't do that. And I did this. Yeah. Do that. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't all bad. Yeah. It wasn't all bad. So do this. Like this, I'm telling you, this will work. And just that constant balance of trying to of shepherd and allow freedom, and fighting for the kids, you know what I mean? And them knowing, man, this guy will fight for us, you know what I mean? And that's really important once you're with us, it's like you are like for real family, you're for real family. So our kids call a lot and, want to talk and do those things. That's the best feeling in the world, and it's just being able to be there. That's what I look forward to. I look forward to just trying to help people, and we do that through competition.
How did this is a kind of a personal question, but I've seen I missed a gap. So knew you as a kid, then we lost touch a little bit, and then kind of rekindled with you, ready now as an adult. It's been years, but when it came back, faith was a big part of your life. And I mean, obviously I knew as a kid, you had faith in the family, but it didn't seem to be at the same place. It seems much more in your life.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Man, that's good. I don't think anybody's ever asked me about that. So my dad is a Vietnam veteran, right? So had some post-traumatic stuff and saw some horrific things, right? Come to find out, my dad didn't talk about these things, but you slowly find pieces and understand.
I didn't know he was a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah, and so, he saw some bad stuff, and why is that important? Well, my dad was like a staunch atheist, there is no God. If there is, who is this guy? You know what I mean? This is the guy, him, the guy that causes these wars and lets people, because of course every war is done in the name of God, right? According to everybody else, right? Yeah, right. And so you see this hatred, and my dad was like that. He just, it was either nonsense or absolutely opposed, And my mom, on the other hand, right? Now she had a very difficult life, right? And she had she was more a difficult life, but she was searching for a solution. My dad was much happier, not happier, but he was content to be opposed, right? Okay. My mom wasn't. She was searching for solutions, searching for answers. And she started studying with Jehovah's Witnesses. And so she said she was drawn to it by how they studied the Bible, and how they were so drawn to actual scripture, and everything had to be by the T scripture. So I was getting this, but of course I was with my dad. You know what I mean? Because my dad had moved and came back, and by that time it was go this way with your mom and do Christianity, or go this way with your dad and be an athlete, right? So I still had pieces because she was always trying to tell me something, but I wasn't trying to hear it. Yeah, right. I was going off. Athlete. So I was sort of I don't know if you know the story about the prodigal son in the Bible. Yes. He goes away. I always felt a lot like that, and but I knew, that I had gotten bits of okay, there is a God. I think, I don't know exactly who this guy is. I don't know if I can believe this, because my dad says this, and I'm looking at the world and I'm trying to figure this all out. And I know I'm more attracted to this chaos, you know what I mean, than I am to this tranquility, and I think that's just was my upbringing. And but as we went, I started, I got into, went into college, and I'm still curious, right? And I ended up in college doing a research paper on the probability, not of which particular God, but the probability that there was some type of a creative process, right? Just start there. And, looking at the single cell, the odds of the single cell, forming, how many parts could it not have in order for it to function? Darwin's, statements on, the complexity of a cell, and what he knew was very, very basic. And that and he had some quotes on saying basically, if the cell is more complicated than that we're seeing here, then my theory could be wrong. There's a lot of things that we don't really necessarily talk about if you're, more of an academic per se, right? Yeah. I think Christianity gets gets kind of the raw end of the deal, saying they're not academics. Well, they are. They are academics. It's just and there's many scientists that are Christians, right? Yeah, so, but I went through kind of through the journey, went to a lot of different churches and, trying to experiment. But I always knew that I was aware that there was a spiritual factor that I needed, that I wanted, and I always, I think I was searching for that, like, that closeness, that feeling of like unconditional love, and not that I necessarily wasn't get it. I just didn't. It was different. You know what I mean? There was always something missing. You know what I mean? And I just think it was probably a lot of dysfunction. And but when I started to find this, and I started to build trust in this, and I started to see things work, and started to say, I have a question, and I would get an answer, like a proper answer from the Bible, and then I would have a question, and then I could get a proper answer, and I said, this all kind of makes sense. So it slowly became, it slowly kind of, I was proving in my own mind, like, that there was a chance, like this was real, and so it became. Became a big part of my life, to the point to where I wanted to try to use whatever talents that I had, to say this is, anything is possible, and say, if you just don't give up, if you're in a bad spot, trust God and He can help you, and that's been my experience. It's just a gradual strengthening of faith and understanding, just understanding the importance of. I think we as a society, and a global society, we lack. So much of our dysfunction is from an absence of spirituality, and just thinking we're the center of the universe and everything is random and we're tiny dots and we are so insignificant. When in reality, that maybe it's the opposite. That. The Bible says that not a single sparrow falls without God noticing it. It's in Matthew, but He says, "But you're worth much more than sparrows." Right? So if you think about your existence like that, as opposed to you're a flash, you know what I mean, and you're an insignificant dot, how does that affect you? You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it has had a big impact on me, and knowing that I'm not the center of the universe. And that I want to use whatever I have, because I know nothing that I have is from me. You know what I mean? Yeah, like it's either from my friends, my experiences, people God put in my life, or directly from God. And I believe that. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Yeah.
So so that's been a huge thing for me. And I struggle a lot. You know what I mean? Because. It's still I'm still me. I'm still a human, So a lot of these attributes, it's like, so well, you're supposed to be this good Christian guy, and it's I'm trying. I'm trying. Yeah. What are you doing? That's tough. It's tough for some people. But we're trying, and again, man, I'll apologize, but I'm unapologetic. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable in my frailty. Yeah. I'm well aware. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think if I wasn't comfortable in that and willing to be vulnerable and willing to put everything there and understanding I'm gonna mess up, right? Mm-hmm. And God's gonna help me back, and that it gives me a sense of bravery that I will be vulnerable, that I will put myself out there because God's got me. And I feel like if I want to send that same message to other people, they got to see me do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And not everybody's going to buy into that message. You know what I mean? A lot of people will not. But the people that do buy in, I think, are going to have some of the same opportunities and the same peace and the same passion that I found. Mm-hmm. So, I don't want the bad for anybody, you know, but I want the good for everybody, mm-hmm. you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Last question for you.
Yeah.
It has to do with coaching.
Yeah.
So
let's do that.
So, tell me about it. What have you learned from coaching? What do you think? I mean, I've coached in and out. Coached my older daughter for a few years because she needed a coach, and then I'm around the game a lot more, but I'm not directly coaching. But I do trainings with kids, and I find it very interesting. I think you have to have a certain personality, and I think why you have excelled is you have the perfect personality for being a coach, because you're really good with kids. In general, kids seem to gravitate towards you. You rally them well, and you care. And from my part, I believe you like kids. I think you like being around kids. You wouldn't be have a school like this if you didn't like kids, right? So, go ahead. What have you learned from this experience?
What have I learned? First of all, I love kids. You know what I mean? Like I admire kids because they still have that sense of anything is possible. Right. You know what I mean? I don't want to lose that. I'm 43. I don't want to lose the anything is possible thing, because I genuinely believe that if I tried to be the president of the United States, I have a shot. Yeah. You know what I mean? If I grinded for 20 years from now, why not? Yeah. You know what I mean? I have a shot at this. Right. Like, now, rocket scientist, it might be a little bit out of my capacity, but you get the idea. Yeah. Okay. Why'd you laugh so hard? but yeah, and so I like to be around them. You know, I like to be around kids because you don't have time to be a crybaby. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about you. It's like about you. If things aren't going well or whatever, you're struggling with something that's not their business. Their business is them. You know, and how you can help them and what you can do for them. So that gets me out of myself. Yeah. And for that, I'm so grateful to the kids. I love them, man. They're funny. They're talented, and the ones that maybe don't have as much talent, they need other things. So to be there for them in terms of just like, hey, you are good enough. You're good enough. In this game, this is a piece. This is a piece of life. And maybe you're going to use this game to do many, many amazing things. But maybe you're going to use this to do one thing that's going to lead you into everything that you're really going to be passionate about. You know what I mean? I love that aspect of being able to put hope, give hope early. Some of us really did, I don't know, that had hope till later. Yeah. Till later on, I'm saying, how early can we give them hope? And so I love that piece. What I have learned in coaching is that it's okay not to know. It's okay not to know. It's okay not to understand. That doesn't make you dumb. It doesn't make you less than as a person. It doesn't make you lazy. It makes you ignorant to this information at this moment, right? Now it's up to, now what are you going to do about it? Because it's out there. I say this all the time. The first coaching course that I went to, man, I was so far over my head. So far over my head. Like my computer was busted. Like these other guys had these nice computers. They had everything. They understood all the software, and I was just like, I did not belong. I didn't feel like I belonged. I probably really didn't belong. But I learned in that moment that this is what I want to do, and I'm going to have to suffer. And I had learned that in other aspects of my life, right? But I had never computed it or equated it to
mapped it to that situation.
to coaching, right? And so I got really, really hungry for information. I never want to. My thing is, I'm not opposed to not knowing, right? And I'm not opposed even to looking stupid, okay? But I am opposed to not knowing and looking stupid for extended periods of time. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Okay, so I'll be vulnerable. I'll let you know I don't know because I only got to do it one time, right? And now I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll never get me on that one again.
Yeah.
But I'll find something else. And if I do this over enough periods of time, and I'll allow myself to be vulnerable, right? And I'll allow people to know, hey, this guy doesn't know, but this guy is interested.
Yeah.
He's willing to say, nah, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Can you show me? And if you do that enough times, not only will people want to help you, which, man, I've been blessed with people, that have helped me. But you will learn, and you will keep learning. You will learn a lot. And the more you learn, the more you open the more you realize your capacity to learn. And
Right.
the more you learn, you realize you have a capacity to connect information. And then you start to create information. And then you start to be somebody that people will talk to and ask for information, which when they ask you, you either have to adjust what you're thinking or justify what you're thinking, which again is a part of the learning process. So the coaching, it's funny because the coaching, the best benefit of it is learning.
Yeah.
And then it's that cycle of I'm learning, I'm giving, I'm learning, I'm giving, I'm learning, I'm giving, and then then it becomes really fun because you start to be able to express what you really are thinking and express your own ideas. Yeah.
So let me ask you, you mentioned EQ, emotional intelligence, and kids. One thing that I struggle with, and I think a lot of coaches struggle with, is figuring out when to actually be objective and kind of critical of a kid, saying, listen, suck it up, or listen, you're not good at this, you need to work on these areas, and being a cheerleader and kind of pulling them up, and getting that balance of trying to not being tough enough where they can actually take criticism and understand they have to work towards something, but not be so overly critical that you kill their dreams, you kill their creativity, their confidence. How do you deal with that?
Well, that's an incredible question because that is a line that you have to walk, and both are very important, right? For a lot of our young people, right? They are averse to criticism, right? Because everything is, you can't say that, you can't say this, that's too much. When in our day, it was cultural that you were going to get roasted, right? It was my job, right? It was your job. We were going to roast each other, and the coaches, think about our coaches, they were going, they went all the way in. They left you questioning everything, questioning everything. We had, think about, but this put on the two spectrums. Randy, right? Pretty much positive influence, positive, positive. Yeah. And then Steve, right?
Complete opposite.
Complete opposite, right? Which was more effective? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Or was it about the timing?
The kid's age and all
the kid's age and these things. I feel like I'm dead in the middle of those two. Okay. I feel like I'm dead in the middle. Like I will have an actual go, right? It just kind of depends on who that player is, right? So sometimes it's more matter of fact. Sometimes I'm like, hey, you're not as good as you think you are. Trust me, you're not. Okay, you got a long way to go. And another kid saying, that is not, that's not where that needs to be. If you correct this and this, hey, if you do this, you're going to play a lot more. If you don't, you're going to play a lot less. So this kid that may need, it's tough, man. It's tough love, but they may need to be brought back to earth, right? So that you can push them to the moon, right? Yeah. Because it's never to bring anyone down, to hold them down. It's to bring somebody back to reality, to say, now go. Yeah. Now, bam, you got it. Now you know how to be a dog. You know how to take criticism. You know how to go back and fix it. You know how to go back and work. This there's no science to this. You know what I'm saying? It's I mean,
This is
there,
an
there-
art.
there is an art. There is a science to it, but it's definitely an art too, and it's definitely a practice. And if anybody knew how the exact steps to take every time, I don't even know that it would be fun because we're dealing with humans.
Right.
So we're trying to interact. We're trying to push buttons all the time. Now, people on the outside would be like, "Wow, like that seems too harsh." You know what I mean? In our culture, in our camps, it is harsh. Everybody knows that it's harsh, but everybody knows that it's backed by love and that there's going to be plenty of support to push them all the way through. Now, that does not work with every kid. There are some kids that simply will not work, but we want it to eventually work with every kid. So we're starting to build in a accountability. Like, you have to be able to take criticism. You have to be able to take coaching, because we don't want you to be frail. We want you to understand that the rigors of this game, the rigors of life, the rigors of an existence, right, is going to require tenacity and determination and thick skin, right? And thick skin, because if you're easily offended, or if you're easily taken back, or you're easily discouraged, we have failed you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's a toughening process. There's an emotional toughening process, but it has to be supported. It has to be supported with love. And a lot of people only hear the harshness and the intensity of the sessions. They never hear what happens in the private meetings. They never hear the private conversations. They never see the family meetings of like, okay, we're pushing this kid. And that's another important aspect, is the balance of it and understanding the family dynamic. So does this kid need this type of push, or does his mom and dad got that, right? Yeah. Do they got that? Maybe I got to be a different guy. Maybe I need to be a little bit more like, hey, you're good. Like, listen, I know you got a lot of pressure on you right now. Play, just relax and play. I don't need to be that guy. But maybe there's a little softer at the house. You know what I mean? And I know this kid, when he goes home, he's going to have some 2% milk. He's having a bagel with everything, chive and onion cream cheese, heated seats. He's good. Yeah. He's safe. He's good. We may push it. We may go in, because he will not organically ever get that. Yeah. And that will cripple that young man. It will cripple him. Yeah. So we're taking experiences that he would never otherwise get. And we are forming these moments, right? Or we're using moments that naturally appear to toughen him. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because we know he's all safe. He's safe. He's good, right? And at the end of the day, he may be like, what the heck is what's going on? You know, but you're instilling his ability to cope. Now, not everybody is wound to want that. You know what I mean? And so everybody wants to protect everybody. Trust me, I got a 9-year-old daughter, an 18-year-old daughter. I understand protection. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I also understand some of the fields that my kids will go into, right, are going to be competitive. So we talk about that and resilience in these things, right? Some of the fields that these soccer players are going into is combative, right? I mean, it's a fight. It's a war. It's more warlike, right? So they have to be prepared, which is some things I think, going back into the senior national team. Do they understand this is a war? Right. This is a game. You can call it what you want to, but it's a war, right? And so we want our kids to understand, like, man, there is a divine battle. You know what I mean? There are battles happening all around you. There are spiritual battles. There are emotional battles. There are literal battles, individually on the field, collectively. Are they equipped? Are they equipped? Because, it is so much safer for us to say they will figure it out, right? They'll figure it out. I'm not gonna push them like that, right? Guess what? Everybody's gonna love you. Everybody will love you, right? And everybody will be like, he's such a nice guy. He's the best guy. We need more guys like this guy. He's a great guy. And but that's beautiful. We need a lot of nice people, right? Okay, but they're not going to equip young men to face what these guys are about to face in real life, right? And so we err on the side of, like, again, of vulnerability, because if you're going to push people like that, you're going to expose yourself, and you're going to criticism. You're going to open yourself up for criticism, but you have to know this kid is worth more than my fear of people saying it's too much or you're too extra. You know what I mean? And we tell our kids all the time, people are going to call you extra. People are going to tell you, calm down. It's not that serious. Why are you doing so much? That people want, because they're mediocre people that want you to be a mediocre person, because if you're not mediocre, you're going to make them, if you're going to make them look something different, right? Yeah. And so we understand this. We understand that this happens, and I don't want that ever to happen to me as a coach. And I never want that to happen to players. I want those kids to say, if somebody calls you a try-hard, this culture, right? This try-hard culture, where the kids say, he's such a try-hard. You know what I mean? Like, to me, this is like one piece that is a big piece that kids are actually discouraged from doing more. Kids are actually discouraged or punished a lot of times in clubs for being a little different. You know what I mean? For wanting to do more. Coach, I want that. Let me do that. Or I want the ball. Give me the ball. I can do it. Yeah. And they're like, hey, no. This is like, stop it. This is about everybody. And so the kids kind of get their legs cut off. And the coaches too. The coaches say, I don't want to be this same coach that everybody else is. And the coach say, yes, you do. You're going to be just like me. Sit down in that chair. Don't say anything. Cross your legs. Write some notes. Do you wear glasses? No. Put glasses. Get some glasses. Put glasses on. I don't wear glasses. Put some glasses on. It's
sunglasses.
It's just something, man. Put some prescription sunglasses at a minimum. But yeah, man. Just Yeah.
What do you think's the ideal amount of training? Say you have a girl or a boy who wants to get to the next level. Most of these kids are just playing for fun. There's a small group that's going to probably go in college, and then there's a few that probably will make it, possibly have a chance of making that pro. Just the number game in general. Very few people make it to pro. Yeah. Right. But if, say, I'm talking to one of those that want to go pro, okay, and you're 12, how much training do you think you should be doing?
Well, how much training does a world-class pianist do? What do you think?
I wouldn't know, but I would say probably every day.
Yeah, for sure, right? For sure, every day. So, you're talking maybe 3 to 5 hours a day. Now, mind you, soccer is different, right? Because we're talking about more of an emotional load as well. We're talking about a physical load, right? Yeah. So there's things you do. So variability becomes very important, right? People talk a lot about burnout. They're so burnout averse, right? That they end up not even getting halfway. Yeah. Because they're so focused on this, they're not focused on this. If you're focused on this and you're in the variability and having fun and challenges, like we talked about, the daily puzzles, these pieces, how many, juggles off the wall, it's like games, small side games, futsal, pickup, soccer, tennis, all of these pieces, reading, watching film, watching your own highlights, critiquing yourself. There's so many ways to get better every single day. And the competition is real, So I'm saying if you're serious about the game, it's like a 5-7 day a week deal, In my opinion, you know what I mean? Yeah. I don't. And look, you said like very few people make it professionally, right? 1 to 5, right? 1 to 5%, like something like 10.
Maybe less than 1%.
You know what I mean?
It's a global game.
It's yes. So if you're talking about the whole population, yes. But so I would just go from anywhere from 1 to 10%, right? Will be what I would say will have relative success in the game. Whether they played soccer, whether they play in college, if somebody pays you money, you had success.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
You got a free education.
You got a free education. You had success. You played at a high level. Like let's call that. Now, I think it's important to say, because a lot of people will say, well, I didn't do all of that. And I went and I played in college, okay? Fair. Mm-hmm. What could you have done Had you trained properly, and you still did that, and you did nothing, I mean, I'll be honest, you did nothing, bro. You trained 3 days a week. Like, everybody does that.
Right.
What could you have done? We always use these exceptions, right, to make rules, and we always use this kid and say, they didn't do this, so you shouldn't make that. Is so crazy. Or this kid played 17 sports and he still went to the World Cup. That was one out of 20,000 players. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't do that. Yeah. Like, you need to dedicate your time to this. It is a craft, right? Yeah. And you spread yourself out all over the place. That's another thing we can talk about. Multi-sport athletes. I don't know we got time today, but it's a really interesting, for me, an interesting piece. But yeah, man.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I guess we can talk about it, and then we'll call it a day.
Train a lot, but that's the big thing. You got anything you want to be good at, you need to train a lot and train well.
Yeah. Okay, that brought a different question, but I'll leave it. Let's talk about the last part you just put in there, where you're talking about multi-sport athletes versus single sport. This has been my idea. I thought that between, let's say, 5 and 8 or 9, you need to put them in sports that have them control their body. So if you could put them in sort of a gymnastics or tumbling or flipping or do the stuff we were just doing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, anything where you're controlling your, correct. That's probably really, really good for them because they learn how to move their own body. They're just still developing strength, resistant type strength. Then from about, I don't know, say 8, 9 to probably around 10, 11, 12, you may want to put them in multiple sports so they get an idea of how to move their body in different ways. And then at that point, you have to go single sport, or you're going to be left behind by the people who did go single sport.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, I think you about nailed it in how I look at it, right? Early on, right? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like holistic body mobility, like experimenting with other sports and doing lots of things to become a more well-rounded type of a physical athlete. Right. People just stretch that too long, to where they're now starting to move into 12 and 11 and 10. And so you're getting, I mean, I don't know if you can actually argue that you're a more well-rounded athlete. I don't even know, do you want to be a more well-rounded athlete, or do you want to be the best athlete for this sport? You know what I'm saying? But I think that happens, let's just use Europe, right? Yeah. A kid will enter an academy about 9 or 10 years old, a professional academy. Now, up to that point, they played tennis and basketball and American football and all of these things. When they go into here, they will use those sports to continue to kind of mold them for a couple of years, right? So it's like recess time, they'll go out and shoot basketball. They call them complementary sports, but it will never take away
from
the main thing, right? So it may be jiu-jitsu, it may be basketball, teaching, jumping and, landing on feet and learning how to roll and tumbling and all those things. But you're not going to find a kid at Arsenal playing you're not going to find a U14 at Arsenal playing 3 sports. You know what I mean? This kid he's a dedicated soccer player. This is the pathway he's going to go. Now, there's nothing wrong with that if that's what your goal is, to play everything. But if you're trying to be one of the best players in your country, or one of the best players in your region, or you're probably in your region to country to nation, you're talking about kids that are dedicating, because we're talking about bandwidth. Right? You only have so much bandwidth until you start to dilute some of the important bandwidth that you have. So I love every sport, love them, but I think that there's a foundation phase, just like you said, and then if you're serious, very serious, you go. Now,
but you think that dividing line is around 8 or 9?
I think you can stretch it up to 10, 11. You know what I mean? Like, but it's at some point you got to be single. You got to be, because you have to be focused in on again. It's about how good do you want to be. I'm not saying you can't go play college soccer. Like, you know what I mean? If you play 12 sports, you know what I mean? You're probably still going to be good enough to play college soccer. at what level,
Yeah.
you know, at what, you know, so it's all about what you want to do. It's like, I want to chase this at the highest possible level. You have no choices. You need to be in there, like, you need to be training every day. Everything needs to be really focused on how you periodize your motions, and periodize your body, and periodize your learning process. You don't have days to be taken off to go have 3 practices of basketball a week, you know.
Right.
But again, that's not every kid. So we are very flexible. Like, if that kid wants to do that, we say, okay, fine. We just want you to, we want to educate you, right? There are going to be things in this piece where you will struggle. You will eventually hit a wall. Probably not going to be a national team player. The odds of you being a pro are much lower, right? But we're going to love you just the same, right? We're going to push you just the same, and we're going to chase opportunities for you just the same. But we've done this, right?
Yeah.
And
this is the real pathway.
This is the actual pathway.
Right.
So it's just about honesty and knowing what a kid wants, and then making sure that the actions meet the aspirations.
Makes sense. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you. I know you got kids about to come in, literally outside the door. But thank you for joining me. Thank you guys for listening to the Authentic Podcast. Again, we have John Michael Waite with us today, and we'll post again once every week, and we are out.
Thank you.